Wingless Dreamer presents how to build a character voice that makes your protagonist compelling. Have you ever picked up a book and put it down within the first few chapters itself because you just can't connect with the protagonist's narration or dialogue delivery? Or because the characters seem like the same cardboard cutout replicas of each other? That's usually the result of a weak character voice. Now, for the newbies, we're not referring to how the character sounds to the other characters in the story. They can have the hoarsest, most grating voice ever, and we wouldn't care less. We're talking about how the character quote unquote sounds to the readers. Or rather, and we're gonna get into the dictionary definition here. Character voice is the unique manner in which the character communicates, both overtly and covertly. Now, there are a few things within this sentence right here that are going to help us understand character voice better. First, unique. Every person has a unique speaking voice, right? You've never heard two of your friends sound exactly the same, or two actors using the exact same tones. That's uniqueness right there. And so, regardless of whether your character is human or not, they need to sound human, unique, and personal. So, what makes a character's voice unique? Speed, choice of words, catchphrases, all of these are tools to make a unique character voice. For example, the Gilmore Girls, Lorelai and Rory, are famous for talking really fast, while Jack Sparrow is famous for talking in circles with a slow drawl. Audrey Hepburn's character in Breakfast at Tiffany's has a habit of calling everyone darling. It's not a very uncommon habit, but it makes her dialogues noticeably different. The next aspect of the quote-unquote definition that we're going to deal with is communication. The character's voice needs to communicate something about them, their style of living, their location, their age, etc. For example, when Sheldon from Young Sheldon talks like an adult with prim and proper vocabulary, it tells us of his advanced mental development. Or when Scout Finch from the classic To Kill a Mockingbird narrates experiences, the reader is reminded that the story is being told from a child's perspective. Or in Wuthering Heights, the terms used to refer to all of the characters tell the reader constantly that Nellie Dean is a servant because she addresses them as master and mistress. Next, let's deal with the covert and overt part of the statement. Covert here refers to the narrative voice of the character, the voice that is only heard by the readers or viewers. The first and most prominent example that comes to mind is Fleabag, where Fleabag routinely looks straight into the camera to let viewers know her thoughts. That's a great visual representation of characters' narrative voices right there. Usually, this is manifested in novels as the character's thoughts or their narration of the plot. This narration is usually undertaken by the protagonist in a first-person narrative or through a third-person close narrator who is privy to all of the internal workings of the protagonist's mind. This is visible very distinctly in Virginia Woolf's novels like Mrs. Dalloway or To the Lighthouse, where the third-person narrator switches between the minds of several characters, which is depicted through a shift in the narrative style, aka the covert character voice. The overt character voice is what the character sounds like to others. Their speed of talking, whether it's a slow drawl or an excited chatter, their voice modulation, whether their voice is monotonous or fluctuating, their catchphrases or habitual tones of voice. For example, J.D. Salinger's classic Catcher in the Rye features the word phony a lot. The protagonist uses it to cover several kinds of expressions: fake, depressing, unfair, and so on. Shakespeare also uses this. His high-born characters speak in rhyming verses of iambic pentameter, but his lower-class characters like foot soldiers or other side characters use blank verse. For example, Bolingbroke in Richard III doesn't use rhyme until he becomes king, which is a sign of him acquiring higher status. An important part of the overt character voice is dialogue. Dialogue is derived from Old English dialogas, plural, from Latin and Greek dialogos. We can say from the etymology of the word that dialogue is the oral communication or conversation between two or more characters in a literary work. Dialogues often use direct speech, which is why they're written in quotation marks. The most commonly used types of dialogue are the outer dialogue and the inner dialogue or the internal monologue. This corresponds with overt and covert character voices. The kind of dialogue that we're concerned with is the outer dialogue, where two or more characters have a conversation. The use of outer dialogue has several advantages to the plot. It is expository, that is, it drives the plot through the advancement of the characters' interpersonal relationships, because these relationships are the ones that create conflict and eventually lead to its resolution. Dialogues also help with characterization. They enable writers to create engaging characters that appear human to the reader, which makes them relatable. Lastly, as a part of the character's voice, they convey information about the character's personality traits and their background. So, to sum up, your character should have a unique voice that distinguishes them from other characters. The character's voice must indicate something about them, and their narrative voice and dialogue voice should both implement the above two conditions. If you use these elements for every character voice, then you have pretty much an unlimited scope to create unique character voices, and of course, by extension, unique characters. Thank you, and don't forget to subscribe.